witches, and welcome back on my channel. Right, I feel like I need a bit of a spooky voice today, as we're going to choke on our own saliva. We're going to be talking about something a little spooky. It's been a little while since I sat down and actually talked about a topic in depth. So if you're on my channel for these sort of videos, well, finally, I'm so sorry. And every one of my videos, I'm always like, oh, I'm so sorry I've not been posting because life, literally, that is the reason. Life be life. Na 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 na. So let's get into the nitty gritty. Today I'm going to be talking about the types of hauntings. As you may have seen, I love doing some ghost hunting. My mouth wasn't sure if it was gonna do haunting or hunting. It feels like it found the perfect in between somehow. So I love to do a bit of ghost hunting, even though it's been a little while since I've done one. Again, just life. But I am in York, surrounded by haunted places. It is a matter of time, I guess. A matter of money, mostly. I thought, since I can't provide with any sort of investigation for now, why not get into the types of spirits that may or may not be encountered during huntings and try to, I'm gonna use my typical form and kind of just list things and have a short description for each of them. Try to untangle the differences between each of them, and I've added quite a lot on the list because I like to keep an open spirit, an open mind, because I do believe that there is so much we don't know. Whatever is beyond the veil could be literally anything. So my list is a little extensive because who knows, honestly, what we are actually communicating with or getting in contact with when there is a haunting. Like the two main ones we tend to encounter. Excuse me, I'm gonna shut the door. No, this is not a ghost. It is but the wind. Yes, so we tend to encounter either the ghosts of humans or demons. These are like the two main ones that we tend to hear about during ghost investigations or during hauntings. Is there more? So for today's video, I'm going to exclude ectoplasm and orbs, as this might just be how a specific energy chooses to appear and be shown to the world, but they're not specific types of hauntings. So just to avoid sort of, I guess, confusion, because I assume that they could be either or. No ectoplasm, no orbs. So without further ado, let's start. The first one, obviously, the first type of haunting that is I want to say the most common assumption to any sort of paranormal activity is a deceased living human or animal. There is a pub here in York that allegedly has cats as ghosts. Contrary to the common belief, ghosts of deceased living are not necessarily always tied to a specific space. From my understanding, they can sometimes move about, show up in different places, follow someone, or not necessarily follow them at all times, but just pop up, say hi to a loved one, or just, when called upon. So they're not necessarily tied to their grave, for example, but they could be visiting their grave, need be. They're not necessarily tied to the house they died in, although they may be. Some of them might be stuck in a place, unable to move on, maybe not even aware that they are dead, and just sort of stuck in a loop, in a state of in-between. So, first type of haunting, deceased living. Pretty straightforward, this one. The next category would be a residual haunting. So this isn't necessarily like a ghost or, let's say, an intelligent haunting. This is just like a residual energy of a specific event that just sort of stayed in time and space. What happens when you get a residual haunting is you'll have something that happens always at the same time, either every day or on the same date every year, sort of thing. Like a phone ringing in a hotel always at the same time, and when you pick up there's no one on the other side, like this sort of like spooky thing. Same day, same action. Sometimes people will see apparitions as someone going down the stairs at 6 p.m. on a Tuesday, and then that's all that ghost will do. Well, this is very much likely a residual haunting. It's not really a ghost, there is no one there, it is sort of just the energy that was for some reason encapsulated in that moment and just keeps showing up. Ghost vessels fall in that category. That means like trains and boats sometimes can be part of that, where, you know, there will be a ghost train or a ghost car just like passing through the street. It's sort of just a glimpse of something that has already happened. Now, let's get into the slightly more spooky ones, because the residual energy cannot really do anything to you, and the ghost of deceased living most of the time are just like there, slightly confused, might open a cabinet once in a while, like, you know. Let's start with shadow people. The most common way they are portrayed or seen as are either hooded figures, sort of like this, picture me without a face, I guess, and just a shadow, or the hat man. He falls in that category, and it's quite funny because people who, well, funny is not the right word, but people who see shadow people tend to always see the same one. So like I said, there's a hat man. Is it one entity? Is it several one of them who somehow all, like, they just all wear a hat? Who knows what they are, really? They don't tend to have any details. It really is just a shadow. They don't really have a face. So some believe that shadow people are actually deceased people who are lost on this plane. They probably have been for so long that they lose their sense of identity of who they were in that lifetime. Some others believe that they're demons. Some believe that they're time travelers, and so that's why they're not dead at all. They're still alive, but there is something that prevents us from seeing them properly. Or another theory is that they would be beings from an interdimensional plane, so just beings from another plane, not necessarily deceased or demons at all, just some sort of being. So I think people believe that they might also be beings from another plane, just in general, because I was gonna sneeze. They tend to be seen at night. Sorry, when you're half asleep or just about to fall asleep, or during sleep paralysis as well. Some people have seen the hat man. So are they just part of the dream world? Now, demonic hauntings. Obviously, an evil spirit. Although, what does that even mean? It is quite vague to just say this is evil, this is a demon. Demonic hauntings are said to often come with foul smells, the scent of rot, sometimes flies, and bad vibes in general. What might be the difference with shadow people is that demons were never human. It's not a ghost that turned evil. They were never incarnated as humans on Earth. Whereas perhaps shadow people were. Like I said, there's not really a whole lot of info about them. And now there is another spelling for demon, which is like this, D-A-E-M-O-N, that comes from mythology, and the definition for that word is a supernatural being whose nature is intermediate between that of a god and that of a human being. Intermediate, I guess it's kind of like just an in-between, so you're not a human, but you're not a god. But it's an interesting take. Are they actually evil, or are they just something we don't understand? Now, okay, if you think about, stories of possessions and people being scratched and all this stuff, it is pretty negative. But I'm sure there's something deeper than just being like, this is an evil spirit. There's definitely a point of misunderstanding between the human world and our perspective and what they actually are and what they're meant to represent. One that is often just described as demonic, but is slightly different, is a poltergeist. Now this comes from German, and it basically means noisy ghost, because that's what they are. They are the ones that will slam door, break stuff, knock on walls, move stuff. But they are actually quite rare, apparently, that it is an entity that was created, and it tends to appear when there is emotional turmoil or where there has been. This one might stay in a place, but it might also follow if you're the one who created it because you were into an emotional turmoil. I found this quote that says, poltergeist disturbances often occur in the neighborhood of a pubescent child or a young woman. Why a young woman specifically? I guess we're crazy. Emotional turmoil. What can I say? But yes, it is believed to be most of the time caused by a lot of stress, depression, and they are basically the incarnation of all those unstable emotions manifested in the physical world, literally. And they might be controlled unknowingly. You know, when people tend to get better emotionally, then maybe the poltergeist appearances or occurrences will stop or be less frequent, and then when another event happens and stress comes back and sadness and blah blah, then things start to go tits up all over again. Yes, poltergeists. Now, somewhat similar to poltergeists, but different. Once again, a little nuance is an egregor, and it translates from Latin and means wakeful. Doesn't help very much on figuring out what they are, so I'm gonna tell you. An egregor is a non-physical entity that arises from the collective thoughts of a distinct group of people. Like I said, it's similar to the poltergeist, except this one is created by the belief system from a group of people, not necessarily just one person, and also not relating to emotions. Just literally, it's when you have a group of people that really believe into something, you know, you create your own reality, right? So if a lot of people put that same energy into being like, yes, this thing, this person exists, they might as well just create it. Yes, again, the devil, I guess God in a way. Ooh, controversial. Even, you know, Santa Claus. I know, he's everywhere, that motherfucker. Why is that? Because people love to believe in him and bring him back in the middle of July. So arguably, almost everything else on that list could also technically be an egregor when you think about it, but let's not get too far ahead. Next we've got the doppelganger. As someone who studied German, I really should say this better than that. Doppelganger. Anyway, it comes from German, means double goer. It's used to describe basically someone who looks exactly like you and probably does exactly like you, and it's related to folklore and mythology. Some people also call it the shadow self. Now that's interesting, because you know, if you've seen my video about shadow healing and all this stuff, that is very interesting indeed. Now, where doppelganger gets scary and sort of haunting is because it basically pretends to be you and can trick other people in believing that it's you and basically cause them harm. So obviously the word comes from German, but this sort of idea exists in several cultures as well. In ancient Egypt, they had a Ka, who was a tangible spirit double who had the same memories and feelings as their counterpart. And in Breton, Cornish and Norman folklore, they believe it's a personification of death. To see your own doppelganger, you know, it's kind of facing yourself one last time. In most cases though, I mean, of course, death in this case is quite bad, but yes, in most cases it is seen as a bad omen. But I would like to bring the nuance. What if it's yourself? What if it actually is yourself from another reality, from another dimension? It could signify a shift, maybe a shift of timeline. In Norse mythology, a Vardur, I don't know how to pronounce it, is a ghostly double who basically appears before the real person and will be seen performing their actions before they do it. Okay, so there's a bit of a change of a setup. I'm sorry, my camera stopped recording. Anyway, blah blah blah. I've already recorded that part and then the video decided not to save. Who's haunting me? I'm gonna punch you. I don't know when it stopped recording, so there's a part I'm missing. I'll just include it there. Yeah, don't mind future me, who will probably be dressed differently and in a different background. Hi, it's me from the future. What we jumped over was quite an important one, as it's been kind of everywhere, mostly on TikTok, but like in the recent years, it's been like everywhere. Everyone is scared of skinwalkers. As if you've been, you know, paying attention with my doppelgangers, it does sound like what a skinwalker could be. I think there's a lot of confusion between spirits which fair enough, like a skinwalker could just also be the same idea but in a different region. The term skinwalker comes from specifically the Navajo tradition, so they are mostly around Arizona, New Mexico and Utah in the US. From what I could find, they are thought to be evil witches with the ability to change their shape or take possession of animals and other people. Contrary to the doppelganger, which is specifically, I guess they can change their shapes to look specifically like someone, but a skinwalker could look like anything. Could look like a dog in need of help. It attracts you that way. You're just like, oh no, poor dog, and it's actually a skinwalker or something like that. So that is the main distinction between the doppelganger and the skinwalker, from my understanding. I think it's one of those things with the skinwalkers that if you hear it from afar, it actually means, if you hear like, I don't know, someone shrieking, like a woman shrieking for help, that's usually how they will also appear. The further away it is, it's apparently closer to you, and the closest to you it sounds, it's actually further away from you. I do believe that's the skinwalker as well. Back to past me.
Okay, we're back, and now is the time where I'm sort of diverging from the path, where I'm sort of starting to layer the sort of hauntings that could be, adding everything to the mix just in case in my future investigations, just in case I encounter something else, you know. I really want to keep an open mind, and so this is why we're bringing in fairies. Now, the fae folk, not only fairies, I mean, if you think fairy, you might be thinking of a pixie specifically. You're wrong, okay? If I say fairy, I mean fae folk. There are a wide variety of folkloric creatures that are often tricksters, not necessarily in an evil way, just to have a fucking laugh, because humans honestly are fun to trick. I get it. Fae folk are sometimes completely visible to the naked eye, or sometimes completely invisible to the naked eye. Depends on, I guess, who they appear to or when you manage to catch them. Now, there's a word in Irish, and I believe in also Scots Gaelic, she. It literally means mound, and that's where the fairies live. One of them, one popular one that you might have heard about is the banshee. It literally means a woman of the fairies. Banshee. I guess it would be banshee then. Me trying to remember the little Irish I know. There's a few you might encounter, something she. There's one I've mentioned in my Black Cat video, if you've seen that one. There is a very blurry line between fairies and spirits in folklore. Fairy as a term is most often used to describe an illusion or an enchantment. So whenever it comes with sort of a trick or something that wasn't clear, like people would say the fairies have done it, but it might not be, you know, the same fairy could also be called a spirit in different occasions. So that's why the line is very, very blurred. Some examples of European fae folks are pixies, like I've mentioned, will-o-wisps, leprechaun, yes, a leprechaun is a fairy, deal with it, gnomes, kelpies, nymphs and dryads. Now, elementals could also sort of fit into that category of like being fairy spirits. Sometimes though, they are seen as demonic. So they are also a bit confusing, but you might encounter an elemental, obviously not necessarily in your house, whereas you could have a kitchen fairy. So if there's stuff moving about in your kitchen, it might not be a ghost, it might just be a kitchen fairy. A water elemental might be more towards a river or a lake, the ocean, but then the dryads might as well be earth elementals, you know, it's that sort of idea. Again, the line is sort of blurred between these creatures. As a matter of fact though, fairies are often sometimes believed to be demoted angels or demons, spirits of the dead, or pagan deities. Which brings me to deities. Yes, they're on the list as well. There's not much to say about them. Pagan deities, pagans most of the time have several deities just because each of them hold a specific power to a specific energy. So if you want wisdom, you would focus on the goddess of wisdom, the sort of personification of a specific energy. There really isn't much to say about them. They're on my list because honestly, who knows? You're falling asleep and you're hearing voices. Why wouldn't it be a god? Now we're getting a bit sidetracked. Cryptids. Okay, don't come at me. Right, a cryptid is an animal whose existence or survival is disputed, such as the Yeti. As I said, I went all in. I want to keep an open mind. I do think that sometimes cryptids, maybe not all of them, but sometimes cryptids might be real, such as this one. But perhaps they're just in a different dimension? Like, could they just be existing in a different dimension? And sometimes it overlaps. And sometimes people see them. We can't find them because they're not technically on our plane. They're just there. You know, it's like parallel dimension. And then the Yeti goes like, a boop, and a boop, boop. Such as Nessie. For example, there is a theory on Nessie that it is actually the ghost of a dinosaur. I'll take that. So, hauntings. Could they be cryptids? Perhaps. And of course, we can't forget aliens. You know, coming back to shadow people, why couldn't they be aliens maybe coming to keep an eye on you in your sleep, just to see if their experiment is going well? You know, there's a lot to talk about on that front. If you want to talk a bit more about UFOs or UAPs, how they're called now, I have a podcast, by the way, with my bestie, and it's called The Fae Frequencies. The point was to talk witchcraft, fairies, conspiracies, and everything. But for now, we've mostly talked about aliens. So if you love that sort of thing, just give it a listen, give it a watch. It's not on point just yet, obviously. We do as we can. But anyway, Fae Frequencies. Look up my podcast. But yes, aliens. Why not? If they've been hiding in our skies, who knows if they can't hide in our world. I do believe they could make themselves invisible. Like, not invisible, but just like, once again, different planes sort of thing. So I think I've covered most of the types of hauntings. Honestly, let me know if I've missed anything. This research took forever, and like I said, I've been trying to film this video for about 2 years. So there's that. Let me know if there's anything I didn't think of, if there's anything in your culture that could enter in one of the categories. I could make a part 2 if there is enough, or maybe just a short on TikTok or something like that. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a like, subscribe to my channel. If you're not subscribed already, I'm this close to entering the first stages of being monetized, and I plan on making stickers and a bit of merch and everything. So help me get there. Subscribe, watch my videos, go check out my podcast if you're interested in that. Like, you know, just put it in the background as you're doing your dishes, and you'll hear about sirens and aliens and a lot more whenever we get the chance to film another episode, because my bestie's in Canada. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I will try and film more very soon. In the meantime, check out my podcast, get a tarot reading if you want to know, I don't know, any sort of guidance. I do quite cheap tarot readings, and I would love to do that a bit more professionally eventually. So book a tarot reading with me, and I will see you all very, very soon. I think I've mentioned everything. Everything that I've talked about will be linked in the description, so have a look right there. I'll see you very soon. Take care. Thank you.